What is going on, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review one of the most fucked up, disturbing horror films that you will ever see, a little movie called The Sadness, which actually came out in Taiwan in January of 2021, but over the last year and a half, it's been slowly but surely making its way to different film festivals around the world, like Locarno, as well as Fantasia International Film Festival, as well as Fantastic Fest in Austin this past fall. I don't know why it's taken so long to come out in America, but Shudder in their infinite wisdom is going to be dropping this movie on Thursday, May 12th. And if you're a horror junkie, it gets my highest possible recommendation, which I very rarely say, but just to give you a little background info, this is written and directed by a filmmaker named Rob Jabaz. I'm not quite sure how to say his name, but he's from Canada. However, he got his filmmaking start in Taiwan. He did a couple of shorts, but this is his feature film directorial debut. And I don't know if it qualifies as the zombie genre, even though it feels like it's got a lot of common ground because they're not zombies. This is more of a pandemic horror movie. And you can't even really make comparisons to 28 Days Later, where it's like, mad cow virus. Really, the only comparison you can make is to the comic book Crossed, which was created by Garth Ennis, but also had some great story arcs by David Lapham. Because while it is an outbreak and it is destructive, they maintain their ability to speak and to use their imagination. And all that really changes is that they lose any and all inhibitions, where all they want in the most creative way possible is to inflict as much violence and carnage and torture and rape as humanly possible. And the more sadness they can inflict upon their victims, the happier they are, which leads to some of the most demented, strange, subversive, disturbing scenes you will ever see in a horror movie. And I've seen a lot of crazy horror movies over the years from all over the world, from every conceivable era. And when it comes to zombie films, whether you're talking Italian or American or South Korean or Japanese or Hong Kong, or British zombie films, I've seen zombie films from all over the world. And so I would assume that I've got enough emotional scar tissue to kind of, bring it on, give me your best shot. But 15 minutes into this movie, I was screaming, and I don't think I'll be alone. So I'm assuming that most American audience members have not yet seen The Sadness. I'm going to be very vague on the details because part of the demented joy of watching this movie is just being shocked and amazed by the creativity of these creatures. I don't even know what to call them. You can't really call them zombies. You can't call them crossed because it's not crossed. I'll just say it's the Alvin virus. People that are suffering from the Alvin virus, the shit they cook up would just make your head spin. But it's not just a depraved experience. Rob Jabaz, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's a really good director. He knows how to have ebb and flow to storytelling. He knows how to give you a break and let you take a breath when it's needed. And he's able to build suspense and tension so well. Just like, you'll see an eerie shot of somebody off in the distance where you're not quite sure why it's disturbing, but then it'll pay dividends later on. And every detail that he presents you with, whether it's the battery of life on somebody's phone or a pair of garden shears, whatever the case might be, they're not just frivolously kind of sprinkled throughout the movie. They're all going to have a payoff later on. So pay close attention as you watch this. You're in the hands of a really good storyteller. And the story is relatively simple. It follows a young couple who are happy and in love, and they wake up. It's modern day Taiwan, and they're starting their day. And there are only a few warning signs that something is amiss. I believe they're in Taipei, but I'm not quite sure what city they're in. In any event, they separate, they go back to their daily routine, and then all hell breaks loose. And most of the movie is about them trying to navigate the city and get back together so they can try and protect one another. And they each have their own little individual journey along the way with the various peaks and valleys. And I was pretty much enthralled the entire way. First and foremost, the movie just looks great. Rob Jabaz, he knows how to shoot a movie, whether you're talking about Dutch angles or interesting lighting effects or just the color scheme across the board. But I think what I responded to most was how along the way these two characters, they'll encounter other people who are trying to survive, each in their own way. And some of them will get turned, some of them will get killed, some of them become allies. But this movie has like 3 or 4 kind of main action set pieces that'll just make your jaw hit the floor. There's a train sequence, which might be the bloodiest sequence I've ever seen in any movie. And yes, I've seen Peter Jackson's Brain Dead. This exceeds even that. And I guess what makes it so disturbing is, and this is not a spoiler because it's in the trailer, but when people in this movie are infected with the Alvin virus, it changes their eyes, where their eyes go totally black and it kind of gets puffy. It's basically like an extreme version of the flu, which shares a lot of overlap with rabies. Anyway, the movie gives you all the kind of word salad and just kind of plot details you need to know in order to understand what the virus is doing to people. But there's something that's so disturbing about seeing all the infected smiling as they do all these things, because they're talking to you as they do horrible things to you. They're taunting you. The more you scream and the more sad and disturbed you become, the happier they are. And seeing them work as a team, it's new terrain for what is ultimately one of the most tired genres out there. I mean, even if you're the most diehard zombie fan alive, I imagine at a certain point you're like, you know what? Maybe I've seen all this genre has to offer. I've seen the Lucio Fulci films, and I've seen, the George A. Romero movies, and it's like, how many surprises are there left in this genre? Well, the answer is, as great as the zombie films from America, Britain, Italy, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Japan have been, you can now add Taiwan to the mix. And yes, Taiwan is a country no matter what Chinese officials might have you believe. And so I think with this movie, we now have our first great movie of the pandemic. It's obviously inspired by the pandemic that we've all lived through the last 2 years. And I've been very deliberately avoiding any and all pandemic-themed shows and movies because we've been living it. I don't need to see any more shows or movies on this subject. However, I guess my exception would be if the pandemic turns people into these demented, demonic figures, then I'm in, because this is not a movie that's wallowing in all the tragedy porn of the last couple of years. That is not for me. Life is for the living and life is for moving forward. But holy crap, Rob Jabaz has managed to take kind of our fear and uncertainty and all the conflicting reports and all the conflicting misinformation we've been exposed to for the last 2 years, and he's managed to kind of like throw gasoline on a brush fire and create this completely, totally unforgettable horror experience. And I think what really sets it apart from some zombie films of the past is how we know some of the characters who are transformed, and once again, because they can still communicate, they're allowed to have personality. There's one individual who becomes like one of the big like main central villains throughout the entire movie. But it's very rare in the zombie genre to have like a real central villain with personality and a name, one who's going to kind of wink and laugh at you and drool while taunting you with all these perverse sexual acts that they're about to inflict upon you. And the good news is the movie saves some of the best for last. The last act, where we actually get some of the exposition about the virus and about ways to combat it and with some of the consequences, we basically encounter like a mad scientist character. And the movie definitely manages to kind of twist the knife just a little bit further and delivers an unforgettable ending. I'm not going to say what it is, whether it's optimistic or bleak or apocalyptic, but I guarantee you the last 10, 15 seconds you will never forget. And as I get older, what I respond to most with a book or a movie or a video game or any sort of storytelling experience, I respond most to things that are very pure in their intentions, where they know exactly what they want to be, and they're not saddling the story with other agendas, where sometimes you can watch a movie or a show and you're like, wow, like you can tell like they were forced to make so many compromises along the way, and now the experience is just, it's tainted because of all this crap that's been thrown on top of it. The sadness knows exactly what it wants to be, and I think we're seeing the arrival of a major new voice in the horror genre. Rob Jabaz, with his first movie, has made one of the best horror films that I've ever seen. So who knows, maybe he'll be a one-hit wonder and he'll have that classic sophomore slump where he's always kind of chasing the success of this film. My hope, though, is that people will see it, because I feel like the horror genre, it's as exciting, as great as it can be. There's no getting around the fact that most horror movies suck. Most horror movies are pretty derivative. They're just copying the horror films of the past, and they're wildly unoriginal. The sadness is something special. The sadness is one of those movies that cuts right through all that noise, and it's just like getting an ice pick right into the middle of your forehead. I don't care how jaded and cynical you are. I don't care how many horror movies you've seen. There are moments in the sadness where you're just going to be like, oh dear God, like I need to go watch some like Bambi movies for a while just to kind of wash this experience out of my mouth. Now, I know that for some screenings of this movie at different festivals, they would offer all sorts of ridiculous warnings, etc., about what you're about to experience. I'll just say this: watch the Red Band trailer. If you like the Red Band trailer, you're going to love the movie. And if you're halfway through the trailer and you're running out of the room, well, maybe you're not ready for the sadness. But for the people out there who like their horror movies to go all the way to the edge of the abyss and look into it, and perhaps, as the old expression goes, if you gaze into the abyss, it also gazes into you. Yeah, I like horror movies that really just rip your spine out and tear your soul to pieces and, leave an impression on you. So hell yeah to the sadness. Easily one of the top 5 or top 10 movies I expect to see all year in the U.S. I know technically it's a 2021 movie, but it's brand new for me here in the United States. And like I said, if you're a horror fan, it gets my highest possible recommendation that I can make on this channel. So I hope you enjoyed this review. If so, please remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and hope everyone enjoys the sadness. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.